Weaning. What a minefield. So I have 10 tips today for weaning. When I say weaning, I mean introducing solid foods to your little one. I know in some parts of the world, weaning means taking away the milk completely and just going on to solids. Nope, I mean introducing solids and continuing with the milk. Just as a small disclaimer, I'm not an expert, I'm not a paediatrician, I'm literally just a mum who has an 11-month-old, nearly one, oh my god, and I have been weaning him, giving him solid foods for the past 5 months, nearly 6 months. And these are the things that I've picked up along the way. Oh, and as a bonus tip, if you're ever feeling uninspired, obviously the internet has a whole wealth of information. But Instagram I found really useful. There are so many weaning pages on there, and as a shameless plug, I have my own Instagram for weaning and it's called Vegan Weaning. I will link it here, I'll show the tag here for it. So the first tip is nice and easy. When you are feeding your child, have a muslin or 4 to hand. Have one across your lap. Have one on the table if you're feeding at a table. Have muslins everywhere because you get hands-on with your child. Whether you're puree feeding or baby-led weaning, your hands will get messy. And the first 3-4 weeks of me doing this, I realised my clothes were filthy because my hands were covered in stuff and I was just rubbing my hands on my outfits. And so now I have a muslin across my lap, which makes things a lot cleaner. Tip number 2, quite a common tip I think, would be have a second spoon to hand, or 3 or 4 spoons to hand, because when you feed your baby, when they're a little bit bigger, they will grab that spoon and they have a death grip. I don't understand where babies get their strength from, but they hold on to spoons and you cannot get it back. So it's easier just to let them have that spoon and you continue feeding with another spoon. That spoon they're holding may be placed calmly onto the high chair, or it may get hurled across the room. So if that's the case, have a 3rd spoon to hand and a 4th, and maybe more depending on how good your child is at throwing things. Invest in a good bib. I have quite a few varieties of bibs. I have the ones that are like silicone, a little pouch bit for food to fall into. Just the regular one which just covers the front, and although good at protecting this part of an outfit, they're not good at collecting the mess that gets hurled everywhere. Although no bibs really are for that, because obviously if food is thrown, there's not much you can do about it. And also food will always find a way to make its way down the high chair and lodge under your baby's bum, and so when you pick them up there's a whole meal underneath them, which is quite frustrating. So I have invested in an expensive bib. It's called Bibido. This isn't an ad or a sponsored video. It's literally that I found this brand online and they're great. They are a bit more of a faff to put on because it is a coverall and you do strap the bib underneath the high chair, so any food that goes down the front will get caught in like a little pouch and there's no way for it to go down. I'll have a video here so you'll see what Ellis looks like when he's wearing it. Obviously if Ellis throws food, it doesn't catch it there because it's not it doesn't go all the way around the room. Speaking of, as a side note, I do recommend putting like a shower curtain or some sort of plastic material on the floor to catch bits of food, because we don't have anything like that, and sweeping up couscous and pasta is a tricky situation because it doesn't sweep up easy. I'll link Bibido down below if you want to check them out. I'm sure there are other companies that do similar sorts of bibs, but I like Bibido. They're the only brand I know of. Don't feel pressured to do baby-led weaning. This is probably something that I struggled with in the beginning. So we started introducing solid foods to Ellis when he was about 5.5 months. The recommended age for starting solids is about 6 months. Ellis was sitting up by himself and showing all the signs of readiness at about 5 months, but we waited a couple of weeks and until he was really ready, and we think, yeah, 5.5 months he was fine. When he was 5.5 months and I started introducing solids, I only did purees for about 2 weeks until he hit 6 months. I wasn't going to introduce anything solid until he was actually 6 months old, just to make sure his digestive system was prepared for the food that was to come. And something I did struggle with was the pressure to baby-led wean. I just felt like I should baby-led wean, which if you don't know what baby-led weaning is, it's basically you give your child solid food, no purees, no pouches. It's literally just what you're eating but cut up into baby-sized portions. Obviously no salt or sugar or honey and things like that involved, but pretty much what you're eating you give your baby. Some people do it and they thrive off it and they find it really easy and great and straightforward. I struggled a bit. I just didn't feel comfortable giving Ellis everything I was eating, so I did do a fair few purees. I didn't really ever make a meal and blend it into a puree because I found that a bit, I didn't like the idea of that much, so I sort of did more lumpy purees for him, and then we've moved on and grown into properly baby-led weaning with him. If you don't feel comfortable doing baby-led weaning, then don't. I think that's something I really struggle with, because at first I felt a bit worried about baby-led weaning. Obviously, because you're giving your baby actual solid foods to eat, they do swallow things whole and it can be really worrying about choking. So if you don't feel comfortable doing it, then you won't be relaxed, and if you're not relaxed, you're going to make it more stressful for your baby to eat food. So if you don't want to do baby-led weaning at first, don't. Gradually introduce solid foods, like lumpy solid foods, when you feel like it and when you feel more comfortable, when you feel like your baby's more able to. Just do it then. And just do purees and whatever you're comfortable with up until that point. I started baby-led weaning when Ellis was about 6.5 months, and it's been great. It's been so helpful, but I still give pouches on a regular basis. I will speak more about recycling pouches in my next tip. I still give purees and it's fine. It's not an issue. As long as your baby's eating, it doesn't matter. So don't worry about baby-led weaning. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you do want to do it, do it, because it's fun. So following on from the last tip, recycle pouches. There are lots of schemes out there which help you recycle pouches. If you didn't know, pouches cannot be recycled at your curbside, so you do need to do a little bit more work to make sure they're recycled. They are very, very wasteful. Sometimes it's easier just to give Ellis a pouch, because quite frankly, I don't always have fresh fruit in the house. I do a lot of the time, but not all the time. So the two schemes I'm aware of that recycle pouches are TerraCycling. I will link them down below. I don't use this scheme because there's not a collection point near me. But the scheme I use is a company called Freddy's Pouches. They are a pouch company themselves, but you can send any pouch back to them and they will recycle it. And I buy a little envelope about that big from Sainsbury's. I think it's £1 for 1 pack. I don't really like paying for the envelope, but you're not paying for the postage, so I guess it sort of evens it out. And also they're recycling things, so you have to, you know, swings and roundabouts, I guess. But I buy my envelope from Sainsbury's, and you put 20 pouches in there, put it in the post box, send it off, and they do the rest of it. Makes me feel a bit better about using pouches because I know they're being recycled instead of just going to landfill. And on the other note, just quickly with pouches, you can actually buy reusable pouches. I do have some of those and I think they're great. I put things like smoothies, soups, and also purees in them, and I will give them to Ellis and he will use them that way. So they are also an option if you weren't aware. Again, I will link the ones I use down below. Speaking of purees, something I highly recommend you do when your child is approaching the 6-month mark, maybe when they hit 5 months, I would recommend buying some silicone trays and pre-preparing purees. It was a godsend. Even still now I have some in the freezer, which is just so useful. I've got some pureed lentils in the freezer at the minute, and if I'm making like a pasta sauce, I can just shove these pureed lentils in with the pasta sauce, and I know he's getting a boost of protein from that without me having to like stand and cook lentils for 10 minutes. I've also actually pre-made some pasta sauces in the past, where I'll pre-make loads of pasta sauce for Ellis, so obviously I can't have any added sugar and salt and things in them, so I made a batch of that and put it in these ice cube trays and froze it, and then I have it ready to go. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. I say ice cube trays, quick correction, I don't mean ice cube trays. Ice cube trays are too small. I will link the ones I use down below, but if you can, I would try and find a silicone tray which has a lid on it, because something that I really struggle with is putting the silicone tray with no lid on with liquid into the freezer. It's a little bit tricky sometimes. So yes, I do really recommend pre-freezing purees. It will make your life so much easier. Make baby's food from your meals. It will save you so much time. I will make things like chili or spaghetti bolognese, shepherd's pie, anything. You can pretty much make anything into a baby meal. Obviously, don't add stock, salt or sugar to the meal, and then you can take out a portion and for your baby, in the pot left over for you, you can add all your seasoning and stuff afterwards. but you have your baby meal on the side, and then you can have a meal for everyone. Obviously the baby portion you can then puree up if you'd rather do puree, or if you're baby led weaning, cut up any big chunks into smaller baby size portions. But yeah, it's so easy, it saves you a lot of time, saves you a lot of hassle. It doesn't work with every meal obviously, but for the majority of your meals you can probably make them into baby friendly meals too. If you can, do a first aid course. It's not something you want to talk about, but choking is a possibility. Puree fed and baby led weaning, it is a possibility. It can happen. You don't want it to happen, but I would recommend doing some sort of first aid course if you can, just to prepare you for the worst. If something happens, you know what to do. There's been a couple of occasions where I've experienced a sort of, I'm not sure, is he choking? I'm not sure. And thankfully, touch wood, all has been well. And it's been fine. Babies are very good at regurgitating things. They have an amazing gag reflex, which looks like they're choking, but they're not. This is where you need to do a course on it, because gagging isn't choking. That's a very good thing to know. Gagging's not choking. When babies gag, it means that it's sometimes them reacting to a different texture. Sometimes they have like a tongue thrust, as if you were gagging. The baby will be removing a lodged item in their throat themselves, and so you don't want to intervene at that point, because obviously the baby's learning to not choke. So I do highly recommend doing some sort of first aid course. I don't know how that would work with the coronavirus, but I'm sure there are ways around it. So yeah, I do really recommend doing one. I did one when I was pregnant, and I'm so grateful I did. It just gives me that peace of mind that I know that if the worst would happen, touch wood again, I feel confident in knowing what to do. And the last two tips. The first one, have fun. I mentioned it earlier. If you're not having fun and you're stressed out about feeding your child, your baby will pick up on that, and then they might not want to eat food, or they might not be happy, they might whinge a lot. So yeah, you need to relax, have fun with it. If your baby throws stuff across the floor, then first tip here, don't put so much on their plate. I've learnt that. Don't put so much on their plate, just do little bit by little bit. And if they throw it on the floor, just let them throw it on the floor. Thing I saw online, which I don't really like this saying, but it's good to know, is food before one is just for fun. It's good for them to get some sort of nutrition obviously at this stage, but it's not, as long as they're still getting their regular milk, then it's fine. Then don't worry too much about it. It is slightly frustrating if you've made the slap up meal and they hurl it all to the floor, but just remember, they're learning. They're always learning about textures, sounds, everything, and your reaction too. If your baby throws things on the floor, don't get cross and don't make a fuss and don't laugh, because if you do any of those things, your baby has realised that they will get a reaction from you. If you ignore it and just pick it up and put it on the side or throw it away, then hopefully your baby should stop doing it. But I found that with Ellis, if I go, ooh, he's like, oh, this is funny, I'm going to keep on doing it. No. My final tip, which is the most important one, which refers to cleaning up. Get a dog. The amount of mess Ellis has made, take him out of the high chair and I can say, Kiva, please clean up, and Kiva on command will happily eat what has been left on the floor, and it has made my life a lot easier. Although saying that, please be aware the dogs cannot eat raisins, dark chocolate obviously, but not that you have to give your baby dark chocolate, or grapes. So don't give them to your baby and expect your dog to clean them up, because that could cause issues. So that's it, that's my 10 tips for weaning. Hope it's been helpful. Let me know if there's anything else you think I should know about weaning. If you have any other tips that you'd like to add, put them in the comments below. And thanks so much for watching. Please follow my vegan weaning page and any other social medias I may have. I'll put them on the page now. And thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.